Good evening. Welcome to Inside City Hall for Monday, October 13th, 2025. I'm Errol Lewis. We are in the final weeks of the highly anticipated race for mayor of New York City, and Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani is rallying this evening in Washington Heights with his strongest allies, including State Attorney General Letitia James. James will speak publicly for the very first time tonight since being indicted, and we will bring you a live report from that rally in just a few minutes. But first, we begin tonight with President Donald Trump proclaiming a new era in the Middle East. The president visited Israel and Egypt today as the last living hostages were being released earlier today. Joining me now from Jerusalem with more on the ceasefire deal is Spectrum News chief national political reporter Josh Robin. Josh, what is the latest there?
Well, the latest, Errol, is that there was a lot of optimism and positivity that the president brought here about the prospects of a different era within the Middle East, in Israel, and with its neighbors in the region. But I have to say that there is definitely concern now about one element of this deal not being implemented. According to Israeli media, the expectation, according to this deal, was that not just 20 living hostages would be returned, and that has happened, much to the euphoria of Israelis, but the bodies of up to 28 hostages would also be returned today, or at least around this time, and just 4 so far have been returned, and that is concerning people. It's even unclear whether those 4 are actually the bodies of hostages. They have to undergo DNA testing. Nonetheless, the president says that it is a new era of Middle East and that peace is really underway here. Meeting with leaders of key Arab nations in Egypt, the president says plainly there is now peace in the Middle East.
With the historic agreement we've just signed, those prayers of millions have finally been answered.
Hours earlier in Jerusalem, the president celebrated the return of Israeli hostages and the end to the 2-year conflict with Hamas. He told the parliament, the Knesset, that the military wins now should be followed by new diplomatic ties.
By force of arms, you've won. I mean, you've won. Now it's time to translate these victories against terrorists on the battlefield into the ultimate prize of peace and prosperity.
It came as Hamas freed the last 20 living Israeli hostages after 738 days in captivity. The fate of the bodies of up to 28 hostages are unknown. Hundreds of Palestinian prisoners and detainees, some convicted of terrorism, are released in exchange. The war decimated the Gaza Strip. It was sparked by an invasion from the territory by the U.S.-designated terror group. According to the Hamas-run health ministry, more than 60,000 Gazans were killed, including both combatants and civilians.
After tremendous pain and death and hardship, now is the time to concentrate on building their people up instead of trying to tear Israel down.
By heaping praise on Israel and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the president may be signaling concessions are needed to reach agreements with Muslim and Arab nations. The president seemed very optimistic.
The world wanted peace and Israel wanted peace. Everybody did. Everybody did. And what a victory it's been.
And Errol, you and I have covered this region for a long time. There has been wars and there have been attempts at peace. Some of those attempts at peace have been borne out successfully, others not. We'll have to see whether this time is different.
So now, Josh, you've been on the ground in Israel since Saturday. What is the mood like there? What are people telling you in the street?
Well, people now are celebrating a very important Jewish holiday, so they're focused a lot on prayers. But before that, we talked to a whole bunch, and yeah, people are more optimistic, certainly, about the prospects, guardedly optimistic. I don't think nearly as much as the president, but nonetheless, they're feeling some of the optimism. As for politically, and just when it comes to our president, there's really just, it seems like universal adoration for him, for his ability to bring about this deal. There are signs all over the place, American flags. He's been likened, I saw, to Cyrus the Great, which I had to look up to refresh my memory of who he was. And indeed, he was a key figure in Jewish history, returning Jews hundreds and thousands of years ago, actually, from captivity back to this area. So, yeah, you could say that the adoration for President Trump borders on religious, and people might be able to understand these hostages were held in captivity for so long. People didn't think they would see them again, and now they're home, and the images are stunning. So that's at least what Israelis here are telling me.
The cautionary note in all of this, of course, is that it was the prospect of a peace deal with Saudi Arabia that's believed to have triggered that attack on October 7th, 2 years ago. Do we have any sense of where things stand diplomatically? It's great to see the president standing with all of those Arab nation leaders, but what happens next?
There's a lot of things that have to happen next. First of all, the people in Gaza need to have a better life. Their land has been just devastated, and we mentioned the toll in that package there, 60,000 individuals. That is combatants and civilians. A lot of civilians died, and many, many more of them have had their lives fully upended. They're returning now to rubble, if that. So there has to be progress there. There has to be, according to all kinds of analysis, there has to be also be more movement on the parts of Israelis to recognition of Palestinian sovereignty. Now, the Trump peace plan alludes to it. It uses the word may when it comes to a formal state. But if you talk to analysts and if you hear what the leaders of these Arab countries say, there has to be movement in that direction, some significant movement. My read, Errol, and I'm curious to know your thoughts, my read is that the President Trump was so effusive in his praise of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today, because I think he's going to ask him to make these kinds of concessions. I mean, he was so effusive that he said that the Prime Minister should actually be pardoned for his role in corruption cases, which he has denied. So, yeah, there's a lot to be done here. It's, as you know, as well as everyone, it's devilishly complicated, but people do feel that slowly it is moving in the right direction. We'll just have to see if that pans out. We've definitely seen that before.
Okay. Thank you very much. Great reporting. We'll see you back in New York. Thank you, Josh Robin. Meanwhile, here at home, the war in Gaza has become a leading issue on the campaign trail in the race for mayor. And as a result, the candidates' responses to today's hostage release are largely and closely being watched. Our Bobby Kuza joins me now with that part of the story. Good evening, Bobby.
Good evening, Errol. And this, of course, has been sort of a flashpoint in the race for mayor, mostly because of Zohran Mamdani and his strident criticism of Israel. So this has become almost a rerun of what we saw last week on the October 7th anniversary of the terror attack, where Mamdani issued a statement that mourned for the Israeli lives that were lost, but then immediately pivoted and criticized Israel and the U.S. for what he called genocidal war crimes in Gaza, and he was actually criticized by the Israeli Foreign Ministry for that statement. So then fast forward to today, Mamdani, first of all, most of the day was silent on this, which some people called him out for. It was about 4:20 this afternoon. He finally put out this statement. You see there, he said, "We have watched as our tax dollars have funded a genocide. The moral and human cost will be a lasting stain and requires accountability and real examination of our collective conscience and our government's policies." He was giving sort of equal weight to Israelis and Palestinians, though, of course, he did celebrate the release of those Israeli hostages. But he had been already called out earlier in the day by Andrew Cuomo in particular for his silence up until that point on this. Of course, we saw elected officials across the board releasing statements of their own earlier in the day. Here's the statement that Cuomo released. I believe this was in the morning. He celebrated the release of the hostages. He called this a moral moment, and he wrote, "We must never forget the terrorist act that brought us here, and we must stand together to say with one voice, never forget and never again. Terrorism has no place in Gaza, in the Middle East, or anywhere in the world." And then finally put up a statement from Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate for mayor, who also celebrated the return of the living hostages. And he said, "We pray that these hostages coming home can recover and live peacefully again. We are proud of President Trump and all involved for making this peace deal happen." Sliwa, really one of the only elected officials here in New York. He's a Republican, of course, but one of the only ones that actually gave credit to Trump explicitly for his role in all of this. But, as far as Zohran Mamdani goes, Obviously, a very different type of response from the others. But I have to believe at this point his views on Israel are well known. He's obviously been a longtime strident critic of Israel's foreign policy and, of course, of its conduct in the war. Didn't seem to hurt him in the primary, so I don't know how much of a factor this is going to really be in terms of determining the general election. There have been polls that have shown more New Yorkers sympathize with the Palestinians than with the Israelis. But again, this has been sort of at the forefront.
And of course, Mamdani is the Democratic nominee for mayor, but he's not the only Democrat here. What are other Democrats saying?
Right. I mean, it was interesting to see the response from Democrats, especially as it pertained to giving credit to Trump, right? Because, you know, you might think this is a bipartisan moment where we can celebrate the end of this conflict. You saw some, including like Bill Clinton, for example, gave a statement where he credited Trump. Others were much more reluctant to do that. Anthony Blinken, who was the Secretary of State under Biden, said this was building on the Biden administration's work, and that received some blowback. So it was a bit of a mixed bag from Democrats.
All right. Thanks very much, Bobby. We are going to take a short break now, and when we come back, here's a live look at Zohran Mamdani's rally. It's taking place in Washington Heights as we speak. Our Bernadette Hogan is there in the room, and we'll check in with her next. Also tonight, I'll be joined in studio by Youngtin Chu, the president of the Asian Wave Alliance. We're going to talk about her support for Andrew Cuomo. Stay with us.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Kernan. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
Spectrum TV, isn't that only live TV?
No, it's only all my favorite streaming apps with live TV.
Okay.
It's only all included at no extra cost. And that's the magic of math. Will this be on the test? Sure. Why not?
It's only one simple payment for all our TV. We gotta simplify and win. Winning is equally important.
If not, more so.
Yeah!
Only Spectrum TV, fixed TV.
I'm Sandra, this is Jorge, and we were adopted in 2019. I remember when they first came to us, Michael was already a teenager. The whole cliche of, they're so lucky to have you guys, and it's the other way around. They have changed our family for the better. They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done with the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s. But showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Zohran Mamdani is holding a rally this evening with allies and supporters as we hit the final weeks of the race for mayor. Among those allies is State Attorney General Letitia James, who will be speaking tonight publicly for the very first time since she was indicted last week on mortgage fraud charges. Our Bernadette Hogan is inside the United Palace in Washington Heights and joins us now with the latest. Good evening, Bernadette.
Good evening, Errol. So it's about 7:15, a little bit of a late start for this big rally on a Monday night. But let me tell you, line wrapped around the corner despite the dreary weather and premonition of a nor'easter, which people are still worried about. But inside this Palace Theater, it holds about 3,200 people. And among them, Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez, who represents District 7, including Brooklyn and Queens, portions that Mamdani really did carry in the primary, Long Island City, City, Astoria, as well as Sunnyside. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, first of all, I might mention you were the first Puerto Rican woman elected to Congress. Talk to me about Latino support for Zoran Mamdani. Is there something that you would like to see him build if he ends up winning City Hall? And have you talked to him yet about a transition?
Too many questions, but all at once. I am very excited and proud of the kind of support that Zoran is getting throughout New York City. The energy is there. The support is growing, particularly among Latinos and blacks. Two traditional voting blocs that knew very well the Cuomo name. That is a kind of tradition, but yet Zoran has captivated the minds of working people in this city, including black and Latinos, who feel that the city is totally unaffordable. And so Zoran put a vision that tackles the issue of the affordability of housing and child care, among other issues, and people are supporting it.
And you recognized that early with your early endorsement back in April before the primary. Some other top Democrats like Governor Kathy Hochul have come around, but we're still waiting on top leadership like Hakeem Jeffries and Charles Schumer, who are also managing the government shutdown in Washington. Would you like to see more, perhaps, leadership from them or more an endorsement from them of Zoran Mamdani?
Well, there is no doubt in my mind that all Democrats should endorse the Democratic nominee, and that Zoran Mamdani is the nominee for mayor of New York City. They're dealing with big issues in Washington, and I am giving them the room, the space that they need, but hopefully before Election Day here in New York, we could see some kind of support coming out of the Democratic leadership in Washington.
And what does this say about leadership? The way that Zoran Mamdani was at the bottom of the polls just a year ago, he ended out not only on top, but besting Andrew Cuomo by double digits. What does this say about the way that the Democratic Party has changed? And what more do you think that leadership might need to recognize if they're going to try to take back the House and even the White House in the next cycle?
What the lesson that it teaches us is that we need to talk to the voters about their issues, that they need to feel that they are being seen. So when you talk about the affordability crisis in the area of housing and child care, that captivates the imagination of people that are finding that is so difficult to be able to succeed here in New York City.
And last quick question, fellow Puerto Rican Bad Bunny will be playing at the Super Bowl.
Yes.
What's your advice to people that might not be so sure about him or haven't listened to him?
Just listen to him, even if you don't speak the language, to just listen to him.
Great. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Appreciate it. So, Errol, that was the Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez, an early supporter of Zoran Mamdani. And again, you know, the district that she represents in Congress really carried a lot of support from Mamdani in the primary.
So, Bernadette, from what you can tell, that many people don't come into a room accidentally or just one by one. What kind of groups help put this together, as far as you can tell?
Well, look, I mean, Mamdani has gotten a lot of support from younger voters, but I've been interviewing people of all ages, old and young, people from different ethnicities, religions. I spoke with a Jewish voter who said that she loves Mamdani's message of universality. And just behind me, you can see some of these supporters already getting riled up before this rally is beginning. It hasn't started yet, as I said. It's a little late. But actually, right now, I'm spying Yusef Salam, the city councilman from Harlem, another Democrat. But really, Errol, it's people from all walks of life, all ages in this room today, and we'll see what Mamdani and the other speakers have to say later on.
All right. Thanks very much, Bernadette. We are going to take a short break now, and when we come back, House Speaker Mike Johnson says that the government shutdown could become the longest in American history. We'll bring you a report from Washington, D.C. in 2 minutes. Stay with us. This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of political experts will be covering every angle of this election to keep you informed on how it could affect you, so you can feel confident with your decision at the polls.
Stay with Spectrum News New York 1 for Decision 2025, exclusively on Spectrum.
It's only a game. It's only a little rivalry. It's only a ritual. When I come home late, and a few generations. You're always there. And only Spectrum TV includes all your favorite streaming apps with live TV at no extra cost. It's only a game. It's only everything.
Mom was always organized, but she started forgetting to pay her bills on time.
And she'd buy the same gifts over and over. Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
At first, we had our cries, but then we were like, okay, let's make a plan.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together. It's so important for you to think about what you can do and making the most of what you have.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
From my time growing up in Queens watching New York 1 to my time reporting here, I've seen how quickly a story can change. At News All Day, we bring you the news as it's happening, from around the boroughs to local government to your neighborhood. Because our city never stops moving.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ferry with the day's developing stories. But first, stay up to date and informed with News All Day, weekdays from noon to 4.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As the government shutdown grinds on, the toll is growing. The latest casualties are the Smithsonian museums and other institutions, including the National Zoo, that have now closed their doors. Today, senators are out for the federal holiday, and the House remains out of legislative session. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, says that this shutdown may become the longest in history, saying that he will not negotiate with Democratic leaders. Spectrum News national political reporter Cassie Semyon joins me now from Washington, D.C. with the very latest. Good evening, Cassie.
Good evening, Errol. Yes, Speaker Mike Johnson has suggested that he's not open to any sort of negotiation with Democrats, saying, listen, the House has already done its job last month when it passed a clean CR. We throw that word around a lot here in Washington, but that clean CR, what he's talking about, is a continuation of funding at Biden-era spending levels. He says, listen, we've done our job. The time for negotiating is over. Now it's up to the Senate, and he's really hoping that by not bringing back the House, he will be able to pressure these Senate Democrats to pass this bill if this can drag on long enough. And we know at this point that the longest shutdown in history was 35 days under the first Trump administration, and Speaker Mike Johnson has seemed to allude to the fact that he's willing to let this go on even past the 35-day mark.
We're barreling toward one of the longest shutdowns in American history unless Democrats drop their partisan demands and pass a clean, no-strings-attached budget to reopen the government and pay our federal workers. Ending this shutdown is not a one-party exercise. Republicans do have control of Congress, quote unquote, but it still takes 60 votes to pass a funding bill in the Senate.
Now, Democrats were hoping that there would be a turning point later this week when the first paycheck would be missed for military members, but it seems the president has been able to move money around at the Pentagon and get those troops paid. So now Democrats are looking to do what comes next, and that deadline could be November 1st. There's been a huge talk on Capitol Hill about this importance of open enrollment and the fact that there are thousands upon thousands of Americans who could see their premiums skyrocket as a result if these ACA tax subsidies are not extended by the end of the year. And that's really been the focus of Democratic leadership over the last several days.
There's a variety of different challenges that we have with respect to this partisan Republican spending bill, but the main one is that we're facing this health care crisis. Open enrollment starts on November 1st. Tens of millions of Americans are receiving notices right now that their premiums, copays, and deductibles are about to explode.
And so what Democrats are arguing here, Errol, is that, listen, we need to be straight with the American people. They need to know what they could potentially be facing when it comes to those higher premiums that are just a few weeks away now at this point when they're trying to sign up for their health care. There could be thousands upon thousands of Americans who are entirely priced out of the market. They wouldn't be able to afford health care. And that doesn't mean they're not going to go to the ER if they need health care in an emergency. So Democrats are hoping that they can use this pressure point to try and get Senate Republicans to the table and force House Republicans back to Washington to try and negotiate some sort of deal. And it didn't seem like the president was completely closed off to that idea last week, but so far he hasn't acted on it. Of course, he has been very busy in the Middle East, though, today.
So just to be clear, Cassie, I mean, even if they reopened the government, if they made a deal, say, tomorrow to move forward, this question of the insurance premiums, that would come up in a few weeks from now anyhow, and they really would have to try and sort that out.
Yeah, and so Speaker Mike Johnson has constantly been arguing that if Democrats are serious about this issue, they should vote to reopen the government, and then they can have that conversation. But with Democrats in the minority, this is really their only leg to stand on when it comes to negotiating. And so they're trying to get Senate leadership to come to the table and negotiate a deal with them, and then force House Republicans' hands to try and get this done as part of a group deal, because they don't really have faith that Republican leadership will make a handshake deal and say, hey, we'll deal with this after the government is open. They want the insurance right now before they give any vote to reopen the government. That's really what's the issue here.
Okay. Thank you very much for that update, Cassie. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, I'll speak with the president of the Asian Wave Alliance about why her organization is endorsing Andrew Cuomo in the race for mayor. Stay with us.
My time at New York One has shown me that in the city that never sleeps, the news never stops. So as the day winds down, turn to the rush hour.
Good afternoon, I'm Monica Perkins.
To catch up on the stories that matter across the 5 boroughs, with in-depth interviews from the city's newsmakers, plus the latest forecast. Catching you up with today, preparing you for tomorrow. Right here on the Rush Hour. Weekdays from 4 to 7 p.m.
There's an international travel plan with Spectrum that was an additional $10 a month, as opposed to paying a ridiculous amount per day for roaming fees. This literally felt like my old phone carrier was reaching their hand into my wallet and just helping themselves to some of my cash. I like having no surprises when it comes to my cell phone bill. And with Spectrum, that's been the case. So it's saved me a ton of money.
Real customers, real savings. To see how much you can save, visit spectrum.com/save.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force, and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is, my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. My service never stops.
At Spectrum Noticias, we recognize that our New York City community is vibrant and diverse.
Spectrum Noticias delivers balanced coverage of the stories that matter in our communities and across the country.
Our journalists are based in the neighborhoods we cover, ensuring you get in-depth reporting on what's happening in the places we call home.
So join us at Spectrum Noticias. We're always on, always there for you.
Now available on your TV. Check your local listings. Also available on the Spectrum News app.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. The race for mayor is entering its final weeks. And as a reminder, we've got less than a month until Election Day on November 4th, with early voting beginning next Saturday, October 25th. With so little time to go until New Yorkers head to the ballot box, organizations are stepping up endorsements and their Get Out the Vote efforts. That includes the Asian Wave Alliance, which is focused on quality of life and advocacy work for the Asian community. The Asian Wave Alliance endorsed Andrew Cuomo in the race for mayor earlier this month, praising the former governor for his stance on public safety and education. Joining me now is Yatin Chu, the president of the Asian Wave Alliance and the co-founder of Parent Leaders for Accelerated Curriculum and Education, PLACE NYC for short. Welcome to the program. Good to see you.
Pleasure to be here, Errol.
Your first time on the program, by the way.
Yes.
I'm glad to have you here.
Yes, I love being here.
What does the Alliance consider the leading issues in the race for mayor?
Asian Wave Alliance focuses on public safety, on education, on quality of life. You know, we grew out of the 2020 years of anti-Asian hate as we moved into COVID. So those are the things that we care about. You know, many of us are public school parents. We own homes. We have roots in New York. And the direction of the city is really important to us.
Your organization urged Cuomo to run in the primary.
That's right.
So even back then, before he became a candidate, you had pretty much settled on him. So I guess your subsequent endorsement in the general is not that much of a surprise. But well, what is it about him that you like?
Well, I think first you have to look at who's running. I think, you know, in the primary, we saw that Zohran Mamdani was a candidate that was attracting a lot of momentum. And he is certainly clearly to the left of where our organization is in terms of, you know, focusing on, I want to say, more centrist issues that matter to us. And we thought it was important for our community and New Yorkers in general to have an option that was different than, I want to say, the more progressive-leaning candidates that we saw on the ballot.
Whatever else he stands for, Mamdani certainly stands for the proposition that affordability is a big, big issue in the city. Do you agree?
Yes, affordability is. I mean, since COVID, we see prices going up, having gone up, and hasn't gone down. You know, including, you know, dining at restaurants and certainly rent. Everything else. So I don't think anyone's going to argue that affordability is an issue across the board for people who live in the city.
Right. And so what is it then about Cuomo that you think sets him apart from both Zohran Mamdani and Curtis Lewa?
I think there's definitely the experience. I think it's easy to talk about what you want to do without having served, without having governed, and the realities of what it takes to run a city this complex. I mean, we are the largest city in the country. We are the largest school system. We have a police force that has gone through a lot of different, you know, ways in which it's been viewed and managed. And at the core of having a good life in New York is feeling like you can walk around the city feeling safe, like going about your life. And I think we were there before 2019. And the pandemic brought a lot of things to light, especially for the Asian community, in terms of policies. Going into that with Bill de Blasio's attack on the specialized high schools, to you know, COVID and a lot of the blame putting on the Asian community in New York City, and the economic, you know, despair, I want to say, that followed in areas like Chinatown.
When your organization formed, you said in the wake of the 2020, when the pandemic came.
Yeah, it was after after Eric Adams was elected. This is our first mayoral endorsement.
Got it, got it. Did you consider supporting Mayor Adams for re-election while he was in the race?
We did, and PLACE NYC did actually endorse Adams. We did take a position, but Asian Wave was not formed until February of 2020, so it was after the election happened.
Got it. Yeah. Was there something about the mayor's performance that
you know what? There are a lot
direction?
of Chinese that have deep affection for Eric Adams, and he's someone that has connected with the community, especially the one in Brooklyn, having served as Brooklyn borough president. And you know, I've met him several times in more of an education setting, and he's been okay. He's been okay, and there were definitely members of our leadership at Asian Wave that wanted us to consider him.
I recently had a long talk with Curtis Lewa, and one of the things he talked about was trying to define and expand what he was calling an urban Republican agenda and constituency. I know you ran for state senate on the Republican line just a couple of years ago.
Right.
What is there something to that? Is that a project that you think is feasible, is viable going forward?
Well, I think a lot of us are not necessarily polarized to the partisan, ship in New York City. And for most of us, it's been around the issues. And I think it's looking at which party is kind of on the issues that we care about. I don't know really what he means by this urban Republican. I guess maybe different than the rest of the country, possibly, and that's absolutely true. I think the Republicans here are different than the ones in the rest of the country. I mean, we face different issues.
Right.
I want to say we're probably more centrist than ones
I
out
think he
different,
meant
in the sun.
Non-Trump Republicans who are
definitely. I mean, there are definitely Trump Republicans that are Chinese. We've seen those rallies, and there are many that have shifted, I think, to more of the Republican platform because of the Democratic Party moving left, especially related to public safety issues.
Your organization, I know, opposed the creation of borough-based jails,
Yes.
At least in Chinatown and I guess in Kew Gardens
as well. Yes,
Queens,
absolutely.
Is that just because those are neighborhoods that are going to be affected, or do you think in general there's an argument for keeping Rikers Island open?
Well, I think it was predominantly because the borough-based jails are to be cited in those areas where, we do. I mean, Chinatown clearly has a big Asian community. Whether or not we live there, a lot of times people visit there. It's really seen as a symbol of the Chinese community. Kew Gardens as well, very diverse community that live close by. Similar to the shelters. I mean, we just do not feel like these buildings belong near schools and residential areas.
So you're not saying there should be no borough-based jails. You just want them to be somewhere else?
Well, I mean, they're cited where they are. I think most of the people in the community want Rikers or a jail to remain on Rikers Island, away from, where people live and do business.
What will you be doing to help your candidates get elected?
Well, we've done events, and we're definitely very busy in our social media platforms talking about and making sure people understand what each candidate brings to the mayoralship. I think it's really consequential what happens, the things that we care about, like public safety, like quality of life, like education. Those are all within the mayor's, bucket of things that he's responsible for.
In our last minute, I saw that an estimated 44% of AAPI voters, Asian American Pacific Islander voters, supported Mamdani in the Democratic primary. Are you in dialogue with those people? Do you think they made a mistake?
No. Look, people vote for who they want to. I think Asian Wave Alliance is really, we want to educate our voters to understand what the issues are. I definitely see that younger voters do like Mamdani. I think parents and people that are a little bit older really are very concerned about having someone with what we consider to be another de Blasio 2.0 coming in. And we're done. Like, we do not want a de Blasio 2.0.
Okay. We will leave it there for now. We'll see you out on the campaign trail. Thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. We're going to take a short break now. When we come back, we'll turn back to the race for mayor with two top consultants. Stay with us.
The next downtown local 6 train to Brooklyn Bridge City Hall will arrive in 2 minutes.
After 30 years of forecasting for New York, I've learned it takes a dedicated team to cover all the weather our city has to offer.
I'm so honored to be a meteorologist here at New York One because as a Brooklyn kid, this is the station that I grew up watching. Morning, noon, or night, our team is here to bring you accurate forecasts you can count on, from severe weather updates to our weather on the ones. Watch the New York One weather experts on your TV and on the go with the Spectrum News app.
Your entertainment the way you want it. With Spectrum TV, all these streaming apps are included at no extra cost. So you can watch anything. Movies, series, sports, reality, news.
Here's a look at today's top stories.
Exclusive originals.
We await your orders.
And even more of your favorites with live TV. Stream across your devices and enjoy anywhere.
See you later.
Get it all with Spectrum TV.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. Two milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable.
The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
My father was a New York City firefighter. My mission, like his, is to serve New Yorkers in a city that doesn't stop when the sun goes down. Being with New York One since the beginning, I'm now honored to join you even earlier each weeknight. Starting at 8 with New York Tonight, we'll explore the latest news developments, followed by New York One at 10 to wrap up your day. So join me each weeknight starting at 8 right here on New York One.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. As we reported earlier, Zohran Mamdani is holding a rally titled Our Time Has Come at the United Palace in Manhattan, where several other Democratic allies, including Attorney General Letitia James, are joining him. This is James's first public appearance since being indicted on mortgage fraud charges. Joining me now to talk about that and much more are the members of this week's Consultants Corner. John Paul Lupo is a Democratic consultant who previously served as an aide to Mayor Bill de Blasio. Also joining us is J.C. Polanco, a longtime political analyst and attorney who's also an assistant professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. Thank you all for being here. Good to see you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Our time has come, he says. Well, we'll get back to that in a minute. You can tell me whether his time has come. I wanted to get your legal analysis of the charges that Tish James is facing. Is it serious?
I don't think so. I have had a lot of debates over the weekend with fellow attorneys discussing this issue. You know, the question as to whether there may have been a fib on some application somewhere, time will tell. We'll see the evidence. But there are 3 current members of the Trump cabinet who have similar situations where they have multiple primary homes. They're not facing indictment. I believe this will be dismissed under selective prosecution. There's several reasons for that. First, you have President Trump asking for the prosecution to happen and an indictment to happen, making that overtly clear to the world to see right in front of our eyes. And then we see the resignation of a sitting U.S. attorney. We see the replacement of that U.S. attorney with what is an insurance attorney get an indictment. Now, an indictment, for your viewers, just have to remember, the rules of evidence are not the same in a grand jury as they are in a petty jury, what we call a trial. There is no defense attorney there. The amount of information that comes in is not within the rules of evidence. So when they say you can indict a ham sandwich, you absolutely can. I believe this is a situation where you have an attorney that has no background in criminal law going in there, got the indictment, and now we're going to have, unfortunately, a situation where she's going to have to deal with some heat in national press, but I'm confident these things will be dismissed.
Okay. John Paul Lupo, when Bill de Blasio was under investigation, what was the strategy on how to handle it sort of politically? Is the idea, did he call up all of his allies? Did he try and craft a strategy for the public? What went on behind the scenes?
Well, I think the strategy then is just you run the government, you do a good job taking care of people of New York City. I don't think it's entirely different with the Attorney General today. This will make her stronger, in my opinion, politically. You have the sitting president of the United States and Pam Bondi coming after her, although I don't even know if Pam Bondi knew that this was happening. I think it will make her much, much stronger. How do you handle it inside your government office? Just do your job. Tell everybody inside the Attorney General's office, we have a job to do. Go do it. Prosecute justice. And that's got to be the focus. And at the end of the day, JC's a lawyer. I'm not. It seems like this is not going to be a serious legal issue for her. Politically, I think it makes her stronger.
You know, when I read the indictment, I was thinking this pretty much guarantees her re-election next year, or it's going to make it a lot easier.
I think so. I think she's popular as it is. We see her popularity rise. The only concern that I have now is the chilling effect that something like this may have moving forward. You know, at what point do prosecutors no longer want to prosecute a former president for something that may have happened? We're going to see more of that. And I don't want Americans are currently conflating all of the charges that President Trump faced last year and the year before with what happened with Tish James's case. Tish James's case was not the District Attorney Bragg case. Yep. It's not the same. It's very different. So we can't conflate the criminal charges with what happened with the fraud charges. But I'm concerned about one thing. You know, when the president wants an indictment against someone, the only barrier we have were attorneys that would stand up and say, there's not enough probable cause. Those attorneys are now being thrown out and being replaced. I've been an attorney for 20 years. I've never taken a criminal case in my life. I couldn't even imagine going into a grand jury trying to get an indictment against someone because I was ordered to do it. You know, what's going to happen as more of these things happen for all of the other so-called political enemies of the president?
Okay, let's get to that question of whether or not the Mamdani's time has come, as his rally tonight has promised. Quinnipiac poll last week showed that Mamdani continues to have a double-digit lead over the field, despite Cuomo seeing a bump in support after Mayor Adams dropped out. What do you make of the latest results? What's the state of the race?
Absent a massive intervening event, I think that Zoran Mamdani will be the next mayor of New York City. He's got a double-digit lead. Curtis Sliwa is not going anywhere, doubling down, increasing his campaign. It doesn't seem mathematically that there's a path for Andrew Cuomo to beat him at this point. You know, he ran an incredibly inspiring, energetic, electorate expanding primary campaign. The general election's been a little bit different. He's been the favorite from the beginning. It's a different style of campaign. You know, don't make any mistakes. You're going to win. And I think that's what happened. He's done an excellent job. He's got a laser-like focus on affordability. He shows an understanding and empathy with what the people of the city are going through. And I think there's no reason to believe in 3 weeks' time that that's not exactly what we'll see again, is Zoran with a big win.
Time is short, but does Cuomo have time to expand the electorate?
I think so. There's, you know, a day's an attorney in politics. You know, I know it's a short runway for the former governor, considering that the opposition is still divided. One thing we got to remember, he doesn't, in any of these polls, Assemblyman Mamdani still doesn't have a majority of the vote. He is a Democratic nominee in a Democratic city where 6 out of every 10 voters is a Democrat. You would assume that a bottle of water at this point would have about 75% in the polls, but he doesn't. So a lot of it has to do with the fact that you have a divided opposition. I wonder what would happen if the opposition were united. I wonder what could happen, right? The truth is, when you have Curtis Sliwa still running a hard campaign against former Governor Cuomo, I'm starting to figure out what is Mr. Sliwa thinking right now? Is he thinking that he's going to lose, so he's going to do a scorched earth campaign throughout? Is he thinking that he's going to pull some votes from former Governor Cuomo and make this interesting by getting a plurality of the vote? Or, like I've seen him say in a previous program, he says the city has had communists and socialists before. Who cares? Maybe he just sees the writing on the wall and he's just going to do the best effort he can. But there's enough time for a united opposition to make this interesting. I don't know what's going to happen, but can former Governor Andrew Cuomo excite some of the 72% of Democrats that stayed home in June to come out and support him? That's up to Governor Cuomo, and I think he's doing everything he can right now to get the message out.
I actually don't think there's not another electorate expanding opportunity for Zoran. In the primary, there are a lot of people who came out to vote who don't traditionally vote in primaries. He can double down on that. If you look at the Quinnipiac poll that you mentioned, the people who are voting for Zoran overwhelmingly say they're certain, they've made up their mind, they're definitely voting, and they're definitely voting for him. Not the case for Andrew Cuomo, who has a lot less votes and a lot less energy behind him. There's a TikTok video, the Italian chef says, you know, if my mom had wheels, she'd be a bike. It's not a head-to-head election. There is Curtis Sliwa in the election. He's going to get 10, 12, 15% of the vote. It doesn't matter what the polls show now, 45, 50, Zoran's going to win. The math just doesn't work.
I should mention, because I just talked with him, Curtis Sliwa's version of reality is he's going to get the same 28% that he got 4 years ago. He's going to add 4 or 5% with the animal rights vote that this new ballot line that he created. And that puts him in striking distance, and so he'll get a little luck, and then he'll pull it off, is what he says. Let's take a short break. I've got more to talk about with these consultants. We'll do that in 2 minutes. Stay with us. Here's the deal. People need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 on Spectrum News New York 1. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Flores Fire Design House. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. Spectrum helps me stay online. You know, I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. Without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
Get up to 4 months free when you bundle award-winning internet. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
Every day tells a new story. At Mornings on One, we're dedicated to bringing you the stories that matter most to start your day with in-depth coverage of the day's developing news.
I'm Pat Turner. Here are the stories we're following this morning.
And weather updates every 10 minutes.
Some morning sunshine possible, clouds take over.
It's our responsibility to get you the information you need before you head out the door. Mornings on One, weekdays starting at 6 on the Spectrum News app. Free for Spectrum customers.
We are back inside City Hall, and I'm once again joined by this week's Consultants Corner, Democratic consultant John Paul Lupo, political analyst J.C. Polanco. I wanted to ask you guys about the political rhetoric that's being thrown around. When candidates are saying that, in this case, the election of Zohran Mamdani is an existential threat to the city, apparently, and it's backed in some cases by ads, tens of millions of dollars, especially from the outside political action committees. I was very disappointed to see Curtis Sliwa having to hire armed security for the first time in his life, because the threats and the anxiety and the emotion has been ramped up that high. Is there an argument for sort of taking some of this down, even if one thinks that Zohran Mamdani is not a very good candidate?
I think it's almost impossible to do that at this point. I think that politics has become such a UFC fighting sport, and we saw that, and I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for this, but with the campaign of President Trump the first time around, the kind of vitriol that I saw, one of the many reasons I'm no longer there, right, really impacted me. And I think it started us in a trajectory where it's almost impossible for us to turn back now. When you hear folks say it's an existential threat, I think what they're saying is that, you know, with an election of a person like Assemblyman Mamdani, some of the things he wants to do, it'll endanger our communities. And let me explain why. I think that's what they're saying. Unfortunately, we are in a society right now where you have a lot of people on social media that just don't think twice about launching a threat. And I know Assemblyman Mamdani has had to deal with it. I know Cuomo's had to deal with it. I know Sliwa has had to deal with it. I wish we stopped. We saw what happened with Charlie Kirk. This thing could get out of control. So I hope that we could tone it down somehow. But at this point, I don't see it, Errol. And I'm thinking about, how do you do it when you depend on likes, when you depend on retweets, when people want to see you be that fighter? Unless you're fighting, you're no good. And they often think that by speaking this way, you're fighting. And I see it on both sides of the aisle, honestly.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can't give up. It's important. The rhetoric itself is terrible. The personal threats are disgusting. These are people, and I say this to anybody who says they want to run for office, they decided to run. The first thing I do is thank them, whether they won or lost, because it's incredibly important that we have smart, articulate, responsible people in this industry who want to serve the public. And I think anybody who steps up, their ideas and their campaign should be treated with that level of respect. So maybe it's hopeless, but I think all we can do is continue to fight and try and take back respectful, honest conversation on TV shows like this. I think do it very well, and I think we've got to continue to do that. You can disagree with somebody, you can not like their ideas, you can think they'll be bad for the city or not like their approach to police reform, but we can't talk about them personally as threats. It has to stop.
And I don't want to tell a candidate how to do what they have to do, but that would suggest to me that candidates like Andrew Cuomo, when you say he is an existential threat, it's like, people believe you. Like, you were the governor for 11 years. People think that these are well-considered words, as opposed to what you think you have to do between now and November 4th, right?
No, but again, with the existential threat, I mean, what the policies will create to the city, I think that's what he's saying. I don't think him as an individual person is a monster. But I think that that's the position that a former Governor Cuomo or Slee was taking when they say he's an existential threat. Similarly, when we hear Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Slee, what we call this supporting genocide because they support Israel in their fight against Hamas. So we got to remember that a lot of this vitriol that we hear is often qualified by how people feel at the moment. I wish we toned it down.
I'm wondering what happens now to the campus protests and the BDS movement and so forth now that there apparently is a durable ceasefire and the hostages have been released.
Well, I think, look, obviously this took way too long for this to happen. We have to be thrilled that there's a ceasefire and the hostages are coming home.
Is that credit to Donald Trump? Is that what you just did?
I don't know.
Put it together.
It happened. Everybody.
It happened. Whoever
Plenty
helped
of credit to go around. Yes.
Thank God those hostages are coming home. But we saw something in the primary in New York City, and I think we're going to see it in these last 3 weeks of the general election. If you think that you're going to change the outcome of the election for New York City mayor based on events that are happening in the Middle East, it's not going to work. Everybody thought in the primary when Zoran said, oh, I'm not going to travel to Israel, I'm going to stay here in New York City, that would be a big problem for him. It turns out what New York City voters want is somebody who's focused on what's happening to New Yorkers in New York City of all religions, stripes, and creed. And I think that's where a smart campaign will focus these last few weeks.
International politics plays a role in New York City. You keep talking about the voters decided. 11% of the voters that were able to vote in the closed party primary in June voted for Zoran Mamdani. The rest of the city has had an opportunity. There are a lot of folks in New York City that are concerned about the fact that the Assemblyman has yet to just say, I condemn globalize the Intifada. I condemn it. Just say that. We have to speak with moral clarity. I condemn the N-word. I condemn it when people say all lives matter in the midst of the Black Lives Matter movement. I condemn when someone gets misgendered. We have to speak with moral clarity. I don't understand how in the world today we still have an Assemblyman who has refused to say, I condemn globalize the Intifada.
He said, I discourage its use.
I discourage the... Imagine someone saying that to you. Oh, do you condemn the N-word? I condemn its use. So I condemn the word in every way that you could imagine because of the hurt that it brings to people. There are people in the city that are very concerned about that. And I think that they're going to come out to vote in November.
Okay, we will see. Thanks so much for coming by. Great talking with the both of you. That is going to do it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching and have a great evening. We'll see you next time inside City Hall.
And that's a look at some of what's in the papers this morning. You've done at the sports section.
Today's story is about the latest chapter for a beloved local business.
It's a beautiful day with temperatures in the 60s, but showers are expected in the next hour.
In a city that's always on the go, it's important to stop to hear the stories that connect us.
The news that matters to New Yorkers. That's what brings us together. That's Mornings on One.
Weekdays starting at 6.
Exclusively on Spectrum.
My name is Gail, and we are in my showroom for Florist Fire Design House. We are a full production wedding and event company that focuses on florals. Getting Spectrum set up for my business was extremely smooth. They were here the same day, had it set up within an hour, and I was online and ready to go and run my business. You know, I have to be able to be online at 5 a.m. when the market's open. And if I'm contacting a merchant via email or placing an order online, without Spectrum, it wouldn't be possible.
One more row.
Spectrum is reliable, they're committed, they're fast, and they really take care of me as a business owner. Last year, when the really bad hurricane came through, our internet stayed the entire time. One of the businesses down the street, she was like, wait a minute, how are you still online? And I was like, Spectrum, baby. You gotta get Spectrum.
Get award-winning internet for your business. Up to 4 months free when bundled. Visit spectrum.com/business to learn more.
This election year is all about New York City. There are 51 council seats up for grabs, races for our next city comptroller and the next public advocate.
Plus, an unprecedented race for mayor. That puts the power in your hands to decide who will run our city.
Our team of